So this piece is actually a continuation of a series that I've been working on for a number of years on and off, examining the difference between the interior of an object and the exterior, or maybe not an object, but even an individual or an entity. I'm playing with the idea that the exterior is steel and the interior is fiber, and what that does to the piece when you see that the inside is so very different from the outside. In my other pieces in this series, I have only ever done the outside edge. So this series of 3 that I'm doing for the exhibit is the first where I'm actually suspending fiber between the two like opposite sides here. So I'm going to be exploring that idea in 3 different forms. The other idea I've gotten that plays on concepts in other pieces is an idea of sort of being eaten away. So when I was conceptualizing the design for these pieces, I was thinking of how something might look when it's been chewed away or rotted. So that's kind of why it has such a organic edge to it. And then when it's filled in, it'll have this fiber just throughout this whole inside edge, giving this idea that as it's eaten away, it's exposing this fibrous, warm interior. When I was conceptualizing this series, I actually have 3 of them here. They'd been sketched a number of times before that, and these are some earlier iterations of those ideas. And then I have to go through, bring it up to scale, which I use cardboard models for. That way I can actually see it in 3D before committing to the steel materials. Once I've got that and happy with it, then I go into the shop and I get out my metal and I get out the torch and the plasma cutter and start cutting things apart, welding them together. And then the fun part is putting all the holes in and making the shapes come alive. With this piece, what's interesting about the surface is that it actually was covered with mill scale. It protects the steel when they hot roll it. And in order to get it off, you actually have to use muriatic acid. And to get the muriatic acid off then requires a lot of cleaning and grinding, but it leaves behind a really fabulous texture on here. So where the muriatic acid actually ate away at the steel and rusted it, it has all these pits and bumps, and it almost has a more natural, organic or skin-like texture to it, and then it gets these variations in color that the steel doesn't have when it comes from the steel yard. And then they're sealed with a lacquer, so they're very smooth, and then they'll resist rust. I get my fiber from all sorts of different yarn shops. I try to use natural fibers as often as possible, which means pretty much exclusively wool and cotton, but sometimes those synthetic blends just sneak their way in. There's not much you can do about it. I'm very interested in conflict and resolution, and I'm very interested in harmony and dissonance. That is the language I'm trying to evoke with the choice of materials. So my pieces are really about 2 things that can be really different, and they can come together to create a cooperative, harmonious entity. We don't have to overtake or overpower to get a result that works.